So for our capstone case study project, we looked into why it's important for the federal government to continue funding schools. I'm Chris Phillips.
I'm Chris Villamonte.
Christian Berger.
I'm Joe Prokof.
And our question was, why is it important for federal government, or for the federal government to continue funding schools? And our reason for that is kind of what is going on in today's world with, like our government cutting certain organizations, and that affects funding as well, and things like that.
And then looking into the audience, we chose a couple different ones with the members of conference, members of Congress based on how they control the federal budget overall right now. The state legislators and governors, because if government funding was cut, they're the ones who are going to have to figure out how to fill the gap with that type of funding. School boards, because they're the ones implementing the policies that we set, as well as they're going to be the ones that are most affected by if the federal government funding does get cut. And then parents, because they're the ones, parents, teachers, and community members, because they're the ones voting on this type of stuff, and overall it'll affect them just as much as it'll affect the schools.
And then some of the main points that we're going to touch on today is the current education structure, funding the disparities and their effects, the case of federal governance, addressing common concerns, and then moving forward with the funding. And then how our U.S. system is kind of works today is states oversee, right now they oversee standards, funding, and the curriculum that students go by. So whether that's like how many years, or like what standards you have to take to graduate or stuff like that. And funding goes to like certain districts, things like that. They decide how much money goes to that. But the government only holds like 8 to 10% of the actual funding that goes to schools, even though they make most of the big decisions. And this goes things like special education, meals, and things like that. You have transportation as well. And that's what the 8% goes to. And if that gets cut, then a lot of things go away. And then it also heavy reliance on local property taxes for like especially smaller schools and things like that, because they don't get the necessary funding, and people really don't want to pay more taxes for smaller schools to have more money. So it's kind of a battle that they have to fight for funding.
So funding disparities across the country. Most public schools are funded through the local property taxes. Each state has its own education funding formula, which has led to open gaps in budgeting. And this means whether like neighborhoods, there's like more population and kids in the neighborhood, they generate more property taxes than rural areas that have like less population. So with that being said, there's less property taxes, and some schools won't get as much money per student per se as like some schools in New York. They spend $25K per student a year, while others like Mississippi spend around $10K. And it isn't fair for those students just because they live in an area with more population, more income, and all that. It's not fair that they get the benefit of having like these benefits in the school system. And according to the law of education system, public schools needs are going to be unmet due to short-sighted economic and educational policies that depresses state revenue. In 2024, due to each state having its own education formula, 28 states only passed the current modestly progressive school funding program system at the end of the year. How inequality areas affect student future success. Underfunded schools see lower test scores and graduation rates, and this has been seen over the past decade, how the numbers have gone down. College enrollment and readiness fall behind in these areas as well. And according to the Reaching Higher Education system, these low fund states resulted in lack of qualified teachers, increase in grade repetition, and increase in suspension and getting expelled from school. The special education services, students that face disabilities or need extra, like have some challenges that need extra help, they may not receive the help that they need or the resources that their schools are offering due to the lack of funding that their schools aren't receiving. And again, this relates to depending where they live or the zip code of the area where the property taxes aren't giving as much funds to the schools in that area. And schools in the low income areas often receive less funding, leading to larger class sizes, outdated material, which means that they're still studying things past like a couple of decades ago where the material has already updated and they haven't gotten the money to buy those new books to teach them the new material, so they're still learning things that maybe we learned or previous decades before us learned in school. And also they don't have the money to offer these kids extracurricular activities that some schools have the opportunity to buy if they have like field systems, gyms. Other schools just have the basic like dirt field and playground, I guess, that kids don't have the opportunity to do things.
So another big issue that taking away government funding would also hurt what's already going on right now would be teacher shortage. The U.S. Department of Education defines teacher shortage in 3 different ways right now, with unfilled positions, positions filled with underqualified teachers, and then positions filled with teachers in a different subject than their certification is in. So teacher shortages are around up to 74% in elementary and secondary schools right now, and the 2024-2025 estimate that this year there will be around 49,000 vacant positions and about 400,000 unqualified positions. So how this could affect students and overall education could be, if there's vacant positions, it could cause more teachers to take up larger class sizes, which could cause less attention to each student, which could affect their overall grades in the class if they're not getting enough attention. And then underqualified positions affected by looking into, if you're underqualified to teach the class, you're not going to be able to teach it to the best of your ability or to teach it to the standard that the student should be getting to get the best education that they can. Up here, I have 2 visualizations. The first one at the top is state-by-state teacher vacancies per 10,000 students. So the darkest blue is the 4th quartile, which means the most vacancies per 10,000 students, and you can see that there's a decent amount of states, with some of the smaller states being in the dark blue, while some of the first quartiles, which are the least vacant with teachers, are some of the bigger states like Texas, California, and New York, where it's not as big of a problem there, but it's still a decent problem where it needs to be fixed with either government funding or more government funding overall. And then the bottom one goes over state by state underqualified teachers per 10,000 students. So this one looked a little bit different, where the 4th quartile, where there's the most underqualified teachers, are actually some of the bigger states like Texas and New York. So this could show that even though they might not have as much vacancies up top as per some of the other states, they do have more underqualified teachers overall, which could affect their education. As well as the 2nd quartile also includes California and some of the other bigger states up towards the mid-east or northeast part of the state, the country. And overall, this is just a problem that we need to fix, either by keeping federal funding so that the states don't overall have to fix it by themselves, or increasing federal funding so that the states could have more to spend on them while using more federal funding money for different things. And then continuing on this, another big part of this is teacher preparation programs. So in 2010, 2018, there was a 50% decline in Ohio for teachers doing the teacher preparation programs, and these programs can help teachers prepare more to be able to teach their subject to the highest ability that they can and give the students the best education overall. So the first graph that I have up top is the teacher turnover percent based on the school year. So this basically shows the percent of teachers that will not be coming back the next year after they teach, and as you can see, it went up a little bit towards 2022. I'm guessing that was mostly because of COVID, or it's actually stated that it's mostly because of COVID-19 with the percentages going up. And they have been steadily going down, but this is also kind of a forecast plan, because I couldn't find one that's super up to date towards the years. But overall goal with government funding staying around as increasing will allow, hopefully, teacher turnover percent to go down, allowing the teachers to stay in the schools that they're at, which could also help the students' education, because it's not that they're getting a new teacher every year, new teaching style. They'll be getting teachers who are used to their job, used to their position, and can give the best education towards the students. And then the bottom graph shows the teacher preparation enrollment and completers. As you can see, the teacher preparation enrollment has gone down. It's kind of been steady over the last couple of years, but we would also like to see that number go up. And then even at the bottom, you can see the completers, where there's a significant drop off when it comes to the people that actually enroll for teacher preparation and the people who complete. Hopefully with more government funding, we can allow the teacher preparation enrollment to either continue to stay steady, but overall hope that the amount of completions will go up so that the teachers can be more prepared to teach and educate their students to the best of their abilities.
So learning from global success, according to the National Center of Education Statistics, centralized systems like Finland, South Korea, Singapore, Canada, and Japan, they currently rank top 5 globally. And with that being said, they consistently outperform all the other countries in the global education rankings. And this emphasizes in teaching quality and diversity in the inclusive education system that they have in their government. And with that being said, the schools funds that they receive, they split equally upon their country. So not by the states of most population. So the states are doing well. The government money isn't one of the states that are doing well financially. It's more going to the states that are struggling to have these updated school system needs and like books and material. So at the end of the day, they average everyone to be around like the same price per student. So as like here in New York, as if they get $25K per student, and in Mississippi they get $10K, the federal government is still giving New York money for those two kids. That's the same amount as the kids in Mississippi, which isn't fair, but the state is doing better than them. So when learning from them, we have to learn about the focus on equity, teaching qualities, and national curriculum. And as the U.S. currently ranks 28th in their global rankings, we need to lower our international benchmarks and focus more on critical thinking skills and less on the standardized tests that we're just requiring schools to take for our students.
So looking at the benefits of federal involvement, federal involvement helps establish an equal national minimum funding per student, promotes consistency in curriculum and benchmark assessment exams, helps support struggling districts through equitable redistribution, and during global emergencies, federal aid helps schools provide aid, safety measures to continue educating students. So there's 3 titles, Title I, Title VI, and Title VII. Title I provides funds to schools with a large percentage of low-income students. Title VI provides aid for disabled children, and Title VII allots funds for bilingual education. Chris would know a good amount about that.
Yeah.
Being fluent too. Alright, so according to Harvard Education, the 2001 No Child Left Behind Act marked a new level of federal oversight by requiring states to set more student evaluation standards and through testing demonstrate adequate yearly progress. And how those standards were met, flaws in the law quickly surfaced. Standards did not take into account the differences between student populations, like the diversity of a district. So the federal model, universal per student based grant, additional funds for special needs, rural and low income areas, and accountability through national standards and assessments. So this pie chart would look different depending on the district you're in. So according to Peter Peterson Foundation, federal spending has a big impact on funding the low income state schools. This diagram shows how the federal government is still needed, and not all states are fully equipped to govern or fund all schools in their districts. So long-term economic payoffs, higher earnings from better education equals higher tax revenue, so more money in the school system. This reduces social service costs like welfare, healthcare, and incarceration, and this strengthens U.S. global competitiveness. And we are 31st. You said 28th?
No, not.
So in this survey, we're 31st in education. So a well-educated workforce attracts businesses, encourages innovation, and helps strengthen the economy globally. Education correlates with lower unemployment rates, lower crime rates, and keeping people in stable jobs and reducing unemployment payouts. So more money for taxpayers.
So the momentum toward change. So when looking at the expansion of Title I and proposed federal budgets increasing educational investment, it'll allow for better overall funding to make sure that the teachers and overall the schools are getting the best funding to give the students the best education they possibly can. Whereas better salaries and professional development can attract and keep quality educators, especially in underdeserved areas. And then nationally, national advocacy groups pushing for equity. This could basically allow that it just pushes towards the idea of more government funding overall and increasing that, and then better salaries and professional development to attract quality educators, especially in underserved areas, and then it could also allow for more counselors, mental health services, and special education resources to become available. I know this is a big topic in the world today with mental health becoming a more popular topic of concern in the US, so having more government funding to allow more counselors and mental health services could help the schools keep their students in the right state of mind throughout the years with how difficult and stressful school is, and allow them to not have to worry as much about those problems or get more help with those problems as they're learning in schools. And then the call to action. So call to action, we want to support education equity legislation. We should support the more funding towards federal government funding. And we also want to raise awareness in your community. So a lot of communities get more money than others, but being able to spread the word and get the word around that we should get more funding can help lead towards actually getting more funding. Every child deserves a fair chance at success, where with more government funding, it would give more opportunities to almost every student to get the same chance and get a fair chance towards success and getting the best education possible. We also want to look at the idea that education is not an expense, it's an investment in a stronger, smarter, and more innovative America. And in looking at this, we don't want to just say that education, raising the funding, is just going to be another expense that the U.S. has to pay, but it's more so understanding the point that it'll overall help the country as a whole, not just creating more spending for us. It'll give every student in America better education and give them the better opportunity to grow up and have a better education when they move into colleges and